just the ninth dimension, because I'm very curious about this, and I can't. It's hard to, it's hard to comprehend it from the outside. It's crazy. You're saying that it's like a mystical bliss. I mean, can you describe the experience? And I know that you have a CD. I saw a CD on your website about that allows us to get into that ninth dimension.
That's a great question, Lilu, because the way you get into the ninth dimension is you study Kalaman. Because, see, the idea that the Pleiadians are putting forth is that there's a dimension that's even higher than the light and the divine mind, because it's the ninth instead of the eighth dimension. And then what they're saying is all of that information in the ninth dimension then downloads into the eighth dimension. You got that basic sense of that. And so fortunately, we're living at a time on the planet when the ninth dimension, which is Tzolk'in, which is the Mayan calendar, has been decoded by Kalaman. And if you talk to people who study Kalaman's work, it's been fun for me to watch people open up, because once I wrote the Mayan code, which is about Kalaman, then I got to watch all my students opening up the Kalaman file, shall we call it. Mm-hmm. And as you already know, there's like 13 stages in each one of these underworlds. There's 7 days and 6 nights. And then the underworlds all have a certain length and they all have a certain speed. You're aware of all that stuff. Well, what my students were doing when I would go visit them is they were making gigantic charts. They were taking the charts out of Kalaman's book and copying them, and people were putting them up on their kitchen wall. Mm. And what people were doing was they were trying to get a hold of that resonance between where we are right now in the galactic underworld and then how that's connected with what happened before. And so here's what happens to people when they start playing around with the ninth dimension. They take a trip that's way beyond LSD, mm-hmm. because it's fun. It takes you back to the beginning of time. It enables you to see that you are at the pinnacle of evolution at this moment in time and on the verge of taking the critical leap. For a couple of years with Kalaman's work, I would find myself going into kind of mystical journeys of what it was like to be the first amphibian that came up on the shore. In other words, it takes you all the way back through that incredible climb of consciousness from the beginning of time to this moment in time. And it's fascinating. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like this is too complicated and it's only for smart people. That's not really true, because once you start playing around with it, it's like more fun than Monopoly.
Mm-hmm. So what can we expect from the CD that you have? It's 70 minutes of meditation, of ninth dimension meditation.
What we're talking about here is a CD that is 9 dimensions that have been, it's like a musical CD. Mm-hmm. So where this came from, Lilu, was I had the opportunity to meet Michael Stearns. Now, Michael Stearns is a big movie composer. He did the movie background for Battlestar Galactica and Baraka and movies like that. And so, obviously, I couldn't afford him. I needed to find somebody who could compose music that expressed the iron core crystal of the earth, mm-hmm. the second dimensional telluric realm, the third dimension, the fourth dimensional collective mind, the fifth dimensional open heart, the sixth dimensional sacred geometry, the seventh dimension of sound and traveling in the universe, the eighth dimension of the light, and the ninth dimension of the calendar, which is also located in the galactic center. So I had to find somebody who could compose music that expressed the resonant frequencies of everything from the iron core crystal to the center of the galaxy. And the only person that I could imagine who had the capacity to do that was Michael Stearns, because he's kind of like the Beethoven of mm-hmm. our age. If it had been 400 years ago, I would have knocked on Beethoven's door. But mm-hmm. the Ninth Symphony wasn't bad, Mm-hmm. So what happened was Michael had read the Pleiadian agenda. And so when I met him, he said, "You know what?" He said, "You write the way I do music." So I said, "Okay, Michael, we got to do this." So what we did, because we could never afford someone like him. So what we did was we worked together to compose the 9 dimensions of music. My CD is a progressive journey from the first dimension through the 9th dimension. And then, because he created with me, I gave him the rights to have his own composition on my work. And his CD, based on 9 dimensions, is called Within. And that's not on, actually I should get that on the website, I don't have it. But what happened there was we managed to afford to have the greatest composer of the modern era make music that expresses 9 dimensions. And the reason we did that is that music ultimately takes most people a lot further than anything else that they can utilize.
Into oneness.
Especially in those higher dimensions, like how do you experience sacred geometry, you know? And music takes you there, and indeed it does work with the CD.
So how often do you suggest we listen to that?
Everybody does their own thing with it. A lot of healers are using it in sessions, like massages with people and stuff like that. Then some people just flip it on and listen to it because they want to take a trip. It's really a lot of the stuff. I mean, I did an interview for the Rolling Stones back in the 1990s. They contacted me after the Pleiadian Agenda came out because they wanted to have me in the magazine. And I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'll be in your magazine if you'll let me say to the kids that they can do it all without drugs. It's not that I don't mind people using drugs. It's not an issue for me. But I wanted to make the point that you can do all of these levels of consciousness without drugs as well as with drugs. So that's what this CD basically is a major trip.
Yeah, but there is no limit in consumption of it.
Yeah.
Right? We can listen to it as often as we want, and there is no rules here.
Well, it's like anything. The more you listen to it, the more you start to resonate with its frequencies. The other thing that's really weird about that CD, and I mean this is weird, Jerry and I have taught about 200 workshops, maybe, where we've played that CD with the group. And every time we play that CD with the group, the music is different. Now, I'm not the only person who says this. Some of my longtime students have said the same thing.
Yeah.
So what happens is that music gets you to resonate, and then once you start resonating, you change the music. So if people want to play around with this CD, it's also a lot of fun to do it in groups.
Wonderful.
That's actually a good thing to do for conscious conversion.
Exactly, that's what I was thinking. I'm thinking of getting it myself, because this sounds exactly like the great thing to do on those days. And we just focus, where do we focus our attention? We just listen and open up and just allow things. We're in an open space when we listen to it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You can't drive a car, but a lot of it's like that. I wouldn't play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony while I was driving the car. I get so carried away. I love Beethoven. But yeah, I think it's a very good tool, and it's the only Jerry and I have created very, very few things. Just because we didn't want to be people who just put out a lot of junk. You know how that is. So this is the only musical thing that we've ever created.
Yeah. I feel it's special for me. So would you have anything else, Barbara, to share with us that you would like us to know to end this interview?
Yeah, what I'd like to say is let's just assume for a minute that Kalaman is right about his theory. Now, in my case, I've spent 5 years of research checking him out, Let's assume he's right. And then if he's right, another wave of energy is going to come to our planet that's going to accelerate us, that's going to be as intense as the wave in 1999. Only it's going to be 9 times more intense than 1999 was, because all 9 levels of the calendar are going to come into our reality in March 2011. So let's just assume he's right. Then, if you're willing to just assume that he's right, there's one thing I think anybody should do who's listening. I think you should go to Kalaman's website and see what he has to say about conscious convergence, because he is saying that we need to make this intention at this point in order to handle the next wave of energy. And so if he's right, people could benefit tremendously by checking this out. So you just go to Kalaman.com, and it's all right there.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. This is fun.